What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Modern Day Sniper Podcast. I am Caylen and your host, and in this one, we are talking with Mr. Carl Taylor of In Motion Targets, who lives up in Colville, Washington. So we went up to Colville and shot a Guardian long range match, and Carl hosted that event. So we took that opportunity to, number one, go shoot the match because it's always awesome to support the Guardian. It's all for the kids. I would highly encourage you guys to go check out Guardian Long Range and see if there's a match coming to you in that area and participate because that charity is fantastic. They do a lot of great things for kids all over the nation. So we went up to go shoot Carl's match that he hosted for the Guardian. And we also wanted to take that opportunity to sit down and chat with Carl and have the first of most likely many podcast episodes because Carl's been around for a long time. Carl, I would believe and I think is one of the original gangsters of the precision rifle sport. And especially up here in the Pacific Northwest, he was one of the guys that really brought competition to a new level because he was always creating super challenging matches up in a field environment. And he stayed focused on those skills that snipers use in the field to locate and range and engage targets. So if you guys have ever shot a match that Carl has put on, you guys know that it's no joke. He always makes it really, really tough and challenging in different ways. And so this episode, we sat down and chatted about some of Carl's history, where he came from, sat down, kind of get to know him a little bit, talked about some leadership stuff, talked about some marksmanship training stuff, and generally just got an idea of where Carl has come from in his career, his long career in the world of precision rifle. So without further ado, guys, we'll let you get into the episode. Make sure that you let us know what you think. Leave comments. We read all the comments. It's super important to us to understand what you guys want, what you like, what you don't like. And with us bringing Modern Day Sniper Podcast back up to the forefront, this is one of many super awesome guests that we have coming for you in the future. So we hope you guys enjoy the show. And until next time, you guys know the drill. Evolve with every shot and make sure that you are staying focused on your purpose. Well, cool. So I got some stuff for you.
Okay.
Obviously, these. All right. There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
We haven't talked about that yet.
No. No.
I can't. I know you're probably not too happy with me, but
No, it's all right. It was a little overwhelming.
I get it, man. And you know, one of the things that's why I'm here is to talk to you about, you know, just your background and what you've done for our community as a whole here, especially in the Pacific Northwest, and everything that you've done for the sniper community in the past. So, and what you continue to do. So it was really fitting. The story behind these shirts, right? The Legend series. So obviously, you know Frank.
Yep.
You know Jacob.
Yep.
You don't know Terry.
I know of him, never met him. Yeah.
So when I first started doing this, I reached out to Frank at Sniper's Hide, and I knew that he was a hog. I just didn't know, you know, what his background was or anything like that, other than that he was a hog. And so I reached out to him when I first decided to get back into teaching precision rifle. And in like 2007, 2008 timeframe, I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, Frank, I know that you're a hog. I'm a hog. Here's my resume. Here's my background." And it's almost like in that time frame, the focus was so hard on the resume of like what you've done and who you've trained with, what schools you went to, what's your pedigree.
Right.
And I think sometimes it just gets real blown out of proportion sometimes.
I agree.
And we focus too much on that instead of like trying to figure out who the person is.
Yep.
Well, I sent him a message and he got back to me right away. And I said, would you mind if I advertise my classes on your site?
Yeah.
And I'm totally new to this game. I said, I'm completely new. I don't do the forum thing. And so he said, yeah, sure. Like totally. Put your stuff up there. I'll help you, you know. And at that point in time, I looked at it and I was just thought to myself, well, that was cool because everybody that I had talked to said, I don't know if that's going to be a thing. Like, I don't know if he'll let you do that or not.
Right.
So I was super grateful for him, and he showed me nothing but kindness and graciousness, and up until this day, and I've known him since that long. And it took me a long time to actually physically meet him in person. So that's one guy. And then I started to learn about the things that Frank was doing or had done for the community in the past. And then I got introduced to Jacob at Rifles Only through Frank.
Yeah.
And same thing, Jacob always welcomed me with open arms, and never once did the whole protector of the badge thing, never once did any of that stuff. Later, I would go teach a couple classes with Jacob down at Rifles Only with some Marines, and it was just a really, really cool experience because I knew his background. I was looking through his team room, and I saw a picture of him in 1996, and he was behind this big giant hog, and he had killed it at 1,520 something yards with a 300 Win Mag, and he was doing that in 96.
Yeah.
And that was in my mind at that point. I had committed to joining the Marine Corps to be a sniper. And so I was like, that dude was doing that in 1995, when we didn't really know much about anything in terms of shooting that far. And he'd already gotten it figured out, and he was already proficient enough. So that's the other guy. And then Terry Cross, whom I met shooting matches down at Rifles Only. And he's really, really well known in the Southeast, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, that area, for his work as a law enforcement sniper, as well as KMW, where he builds the Sentinel rifles, and he's done those for I don't know how many agencies.
Yeah.
And Terry just struck me as such an amazingly kind individual, and it was one of those types of situations where if Terry showed up to the match, you might as well just shake his hand because you knew that he was going to win it, because he was so ruthlessly consistent with everything that he did. And he was able to do it in a way that was so generous and so kind, and so he would help anybody. And it was just a really cool experience to work with him. And then I would later run a law enforcement sniper instructor development package out of Little Rock. Well, I got a message from Terry, and he said, "Hey, I'd like to come to your class." And I was like, "Well, Terry, I would love for you to help teach it. I just I wasn't thinking that far." And he was like, whoa, no, I don't want to help you teach it. I want to go through it as a student.
Right.
And I was like, wow, the imposter syndrome, pegging through the roof at that point in time. I was, relatively young in my career. And, this is one of these legends, right? One of these greats.
Right.
And so I had that experience with him, and he was a phenomenal student, performed fantastic, did not do the typical bullshit, right? He was just a human being going through that course as a student, trying to glean as much.
Probably having fun.
He was. I think he was having fun. And we had great side conversations, and it wasn't one of these things where he was trying to, in no way, shape, or form, trying to overpower anything in that realm. So that was amazing. And then, how you and I came about to meet each other, and the graciousness that you extended to me in this region, right? And not knowing me from Adam. I didn't know you from Adam, but we were cut from the same cloth.
Yep.
And so therefore there's that level of mutual respect for one another.
Yeah.
And, when I think we really kind of solidified, I had shot a couple matches up here with Sniper's Hide Cup. I met you through that.
Yeah.
And then I think I did one or two RTC matches up here. And then we did that group together with first group guys.
Right.
And that was really, that was my springboard to cut away from the Magpul job and come into my own as my own teacher. That was it. So when I left Magpul, I had literally that split that you and I had with that class, and I don't know, 3 or 4 guaranteed training contracts for, a few $1,000s each.
Scary.
Just terrified.
Yeah.
Right? Just totally terrified.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I'm doing this. I see all of these other amazing people doing this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And so, and then learning about you and learning about what you did starting the Scout Sniper Association and your history with regard to everything that you did in the Marine Corps and then beyond. through your reserve time and through all your contracting and everything that you've done for the community. I was like, man, like, yeah, Carl's one of the legends, right? So therefore you get your own t-shirt.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't. Legends kind of pushing the envelope.
I get it. I get it. But it's like, it's one of those things. It's when you show up with a level of consistency, integrity, and the amount of respect that people have, that's that, right? That's that. We wouldn't be where we are today in this community here, especially here in the Northwest and, in the sniper community, without your influence and without, you're one of the dudes that has helped bring all that together. So,
well, I appreciate it, man. I feel it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I don't look at myself like that. I still feel like I'm just another knuckle dragger. One of the guys. I've had a lot of unique experiences, but so what? I'm still learning. I used to tell and say, I've shared with you a little bit this weekend, and I haven't done that a lot with a lot of people. But teaching kids different things, like when we set up the Coast Guard stuff and doing shipboard takedown and this, that, and the other. My pat thing to them, kind of as a levity, as you do in your instructing guys, is say, hey, look, we're going to learn things, and you're going to learn from me, and I'm going to learn from you. And I might pick a little tip or trick up as we're, taking down this platform. And I guarantee you that I'll learn what you're doing. I'm going to mold it and make it my own, and I'm going to teach it everywhere and give you absolutely no credit. And kind of mess with them. But it's still that you just never know. You're going to see somebody do something somewhere, go, oh man, I've never seen that. It's not that it's brand new, but it's another technique and twist to something like, holy smokes, man, that's working, that's good. And pick it up. And there's thousands of ways to take down a structure. What's the right way? Well, I do it this way, or my team does it this way. Well, if it works, it works. Type of thing, that's the beauty of CQC. Kind of, there's a lot of wrong things to do, but one thing that used to irritate me in that realm was somebody like, well, that guy, we do it this way, or this guy says, well, we do it this way. If you just stick to the baseline and then build off of that, the fundamentals, and then back to the sniper community and all this gear, and then some of the guys out here this weekend, and for example, the landowner, Auberts, today, I know we already know he's a good shot, but his rifle's all messed up. The first day, he's lost his confidence. I'm like, just calm down. You're going to be fine. We go zeros, rifle's doing okay. And then I forget who won the individual, but he's teamed up with him because Mike did crap on the first day, and his confidence in the toilet. So, and I know that nobody else knows, but I know he's a good shot, just inherently. And they end up winning today, and I know he's ecstatic, but he has a grasp of the fundamentals. I don't know where he got it, and I'm telling him, don't worry about this or that. You don't get into all this gear. You've got good fundamentals, and if you focus on that and do what you know how to do, you're going to be fine. And here they end up winning the team portion of today, right?
And that's not usual.
No,
that's not
not
usual
at all.
In the way that format is. Yeah.
Right. When they got hooked up today, right off the bat, I'm like,
that's danger.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'll leave targets spread out all over up there through the year. And I know he goes up there and he tells me all the time, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I'm like, that's great. Sometimes I'll leave the generators out on the movers. He fires them up and starts practicing. So he's been, as long as we've been up there, he's been training himself a little bit. So, and then he's done well.
That's cool. And well, why not? You have the opportunity there, so you might as well take it.
Yeah, and this is the first match he's ever shot, ever. And his son's first match too. And his son Joseph told him he was going to do it. He said he didn't have enough ammo, and Joseph went and bought him ammo. Said, now you have no excuse, and made him come up and shoot, which is wonderful to see him out there doing that after I've been on their land graciously letting me shoot up there for all these years. And
yeah, how long have you been up there?
So, got to be 10 years or better.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, because that's about the time we started the moving target company. So, It's around 10, 13 years that we've been doing it there.
Well, it's probably a decent segue to just say, like, who is Carl Taylor? And you want to just, like, hook me up with a little bit of your background from, the wave tops and...
So how far you want to go back?
Well, let's go back to like when did you decide as a young man that you wanted to be a Marine? And then at what point in time did you decide that you wanted to be a Marine sniper?
So I did well in sports in school. I actually had 10 offers to go play football, full rides in junior colleges, and a couple to wrestle. And the guidance counselor at my high school was not a very great dude, being a young, dumb kid. Now, backing up a little bit, I've always had an affinity for the military, playing with Army men and doing stuff, and didn't know at the time I had a military mindset when I was out as a kid doing nefarious things I shouldn't have been doing. And then get into sniper school doing mission planning and going, oh my God, I've done this a lot over my life type of thing. So the guidance counselor says, hey, look, your parents don't have a lot of money. They can't help you in school. Not knowing that I've got a full ride and not knowing what that means. Mm-hmm. So he advised me that I should just go get a manual labor job and be happy with the rest of my life.
Damn.
So it crushed me. And I'm halfway through my senior year, and my older brother had a couple friends. Both were officers in the Marine Corps. One was a rotary pilot. Okay. Another one was a tank commander. Had a tragic accident going into work on Bassalon Road, right there by Polgus.
Oh, okay.
And he killed him. Some drunk driver ran into him, and that was that on his way to work one morning. So I was on sea duty at the time, and the other guy, the rotary wing, they were both from my small town, went through OCS together, the whole thing, and then split different, professions and stuff. And I was on deployment. They were trying to get me back for the funeral and on base, and it just didn't happen. But they were big influences in my life. Older guys, looked up to them, that kind of thing. So I probably knew I was going into the military. And back in the 80s, when a lot of jobs were hard to come by. Late 80s especially. What am I going to do? College is out, I guess.
And you grew up where?
In Pomeroy, Washington.
That's right.
Yeah. So decided I'd go in the Marine Corps. And the recruiter, that was easy. I wanted infantry. Really? Okay. I don't know if I can get that for you now, but, I was a sucker and went right in, I guess, and really, he didn't have to do any lying to me like we all talk about the recruiter stuff. I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be there. So, in growing up in Pomeroy, and you and I kind of sharing an infinity from my home, the Blue Mountains and stuff. I grew up on a wheat and cattle ranch there on my grandparents' place we worked. And my dad and grandfather owned an outfitting business up around the Teepee area and Godman area. Taylor and Sons Caylen Packers.
Taylor and Sons Caylen Packers.
Yeah,
that's the first time you've told me the name.
Yeah, so they did that for 30 years. Plus, my grandfather did it before he had kids. If you go far enough out Lodgepole, which I know you've been down there, mm-hmm. And you get the map, there's this Taylor Springs down there, and that's named after my grandfather.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go there this summer because I haven't been to Taylor Springs.
Yes. So as you're going down, you'll be heading south. So it's on the west side, looking down into the View Creek drainage.
Okay.
So
that's so cool. When I forget how we started connecting those dots.
You sent a picture of a hunt you were on.
That's right, I did.
And I'm looking at the landscape.
Looking at it.
I know where you're at.
Yeah. You said something, and you mentioned either it was a drainage or
you were in the Crooked Fork drainage, which they call Crooked. What do they call it on the map? Crooked Fork.
Crooked Fork, yep.
But Crooked Creek on the map is what it is, or something. I grew up. The first time I saw it on a map, I'm like, wait a minute, that's Crooked Fork. It's not what it says on the map, because that's what the locals called it,
right?
Not what's on the map. But yeah. You were down the Three Forks Trail somewhere, I think, and
yep.
I saw your post, and I'm like, hey, this is where you're at.
Just look, oh man, this is wild.
Yeah.
And then later, we would find out later that I was actually in the mountains the same time that you were
Yes.
going to fill. Is it that bull?
No, that's a local bull. That other,
Okay.
I have the horns for it out in the shop. I need to get it mounted up here, but that is, it's a smaller bull than that. It's not. It's a 6x6. But I'll tell you, that's the most pride I have in any elk I've killed, because I killed that out between McBain Springs and Yearling Ridge. What's insane is I have my 3.7 shy tack on me, because I'm like, there's possibility for 100-inch bulls in here. If I see one from one to the other, I'm going to pull out. And I was carrying my 300 rum.
Okay.
You know, so like I'm on overseas on a mission with a long gun and a work gun. And Max and Alex was on that hunt as well. He's small. He decided to stay at the tent. And we're at McBain Springs, right at the head of McBain, and we go over to Yearling. Now, Yearling was special to my grandfather and dad. That was their little honey hole.
Okay.
And that's also where they took their best clients. They took all the executives of Boeing back in the heyday of the blues out on Yearling Ridge, and that's where those guys hunted. And he always put them in the best spot. So I already predetermined that's where I'm going. I don't know how the patterns are. That fire went through there and kind of broke things up. I'm all ready for this long-range engagement, and Max and I are sitting, and you've probably been to that spot where that little saddle goes from McBain to Yearling.
Well, yeah.
It's not a big saddle. It's just
No,
that
it's not.
little, and then you go down into First Creek over here, or you're down into Crooked Fork on this side. So I'm standing there looking. Max is looking down the ridge, Yearling Ridge spot, and we're glassing. And I just happen to look, and this bull steps into the trail on the saddle. And he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him. He's 75 yards away, and I shoot him. Down he goes. His head comes up. I put another one in him, because we're all taught as kids, and you know how you appreciate how steep that country is.
I do indeed.
And we were all taught, you don't quit shooting until that animal's done. Max puts his hand on my shoulders. I'm getting ready to shoot. It's internal magazine. I'm getting ready to shoot that third and last round. He goes, Dad, he's done.
Yeah.
So that was that hunt. It was very special.
I got introduced to the blues through my backcountry hunting mentor, Luke Carrick. And Luke discovered the blues, and he's a hunting machine. He's an absolute machine. He's like part animal, right? He just has that sense. He's a fantastic hunter.
Right.
And he has the physical capability and the mental capability to continue to push and go and do what needs to be done to be successful deep in the mountains.
Right.
And especially in that region, in that area, that's rough country.
It's no joke.
That's no joke, man. And so he was gracious enough to teach me, and he introduced me to the blues. And I mean, that was when I started hunting there, I realized that it was a very special place.
Yeah.
Like very quickly, it was a super special place. And you could just tell that there was so much history, energetically in all of those drainages and all of those camps and all of those, you come up on these old camps and stuff that have been there since
All the old caches.
and stuff that have been there probably since, early 1900s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's such a cool part of the state, and the country is just epic. It's just a beautiful country.
Well, the elk didn't exist there until the early 1900s.
Interesting. Okay.
So you can Google search that, but there's no archaeological digs that find any elk bones in the Blue Mountains whatsoever.
No kidding.
Maybe southern Oregon part, I'm not sure about, but I know on the Washington-Oregon border, there's none there. And what the elk were put in there by my ancestors. My great-grandfather Long on my dad's mother's side, and some Scoggins in the country. They're cousins to me as well. So they bought, at the time, $5 a head. I think would be a lot of money back then. $5 a head for each elk, and they railed them in from Yellowstone.
Oh, okay.
Same time they put the Roosevelt elk out into
the peninsula.
Yeah,
On the
peninsula
west side.
and all that, right? Mm-hmm. So the elk Dayton probably did the same thing. Don't know about Walla Walla, but Pomeroy was the end of the rail, and they got them off there and they fed them for a few weeks, and then by horse they drove them up into the Blue Mountains, 15 miles south of Pomeroy. The little boys ran back to Pomeroy, and the elk beat them back because they'd been feeding them. So that's where the elk fences started from. We need to keep them out of the wheat fields and need to keep them in there.
Okay.
And they grew those herds and didn't allow anybody to hunt them for I don't know how many years.
Okay.
And that's what grew those herds in the Blue Mountains.
Okay.
So
I bet you it's a fairly similar story to like Yakima herds and the Mount St. Helen herds and all that stuff.
And that could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the Roosevelt elk and they think about the peninsula and stuff, but that same time frame they were putting them in eastern Washington as well.
Well, I mean, there's some parts that they're doing really well, and then there's other parts that they're not doing really well.
Yeah, and that's all political driven, as we know, and there's a mess right now. But yeah.
So, you grew up hunting in the Blues, helping your dad you were a young wrangler, learning horses and all the things.
Horses
like that.
and mules and the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm sure that experience taught you some real tremendous sets of self-reliant skills.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, not only that, responsible as young lads, I say lads, but my cousin was, my brothers and cousins, it was a family event. We literally moved to the mountains, and the one cousin I'm really close with is a year younger than me. So, and consequently, we got in all the trouble together when we were younger as well. But the responsibility, our responsibilities was we had to get the water for the cook shack every day. We're just little guys. And then we had, once the mules and horses were tied up early in the morning. I mean, morning started like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Because back then, no cell phones, no radios reliable enough. So every guy that was responsible for a camp, they had to ride and do camp checks.
Okay.
And they had a route that they went on.
Right.
So who has animals that need to get out, who needs supplies, all these kind of things.
Right.
So every morning was guys going out, regardless if there was clients going out, there were guides going out, taking 2 to 3 mules with either supplies and or dry to bring stuff back in case they had animals and those kind of deals. So our deal was as soon as they were saddled up and stuff, we had to grain them.
Okay.
And of course, we were learning this to do all that other stuff. And as you got older, you got graduated, and then you got to go on the trips and the rides and the stuff. And then like that painting behind me, that is my grandfather. If you look at it real close, it came from a picture. But as you look and your eyes start focusing on it, you'll notice that that's Danger Point.
I knew it as soon as I looked at it.
Right. So that's a family heirloom was passed down from grandpa to dad, and now I have it.
That's amazing.
So
that's amazing. And you know, it's such an iconic section of trail.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can't miss that.
So that trip we're talking about, and it bleeds right back into that. As young lads, we're riding over that, and you haven't been over it. It's if you fall, your horse goes or you go, you're going for a while. It's steep on both sides.
Yeah. And it's all scree.
Yeah, and hence Danger Point. So I never worried about it. I've ridden over that. I can't count how many times I've ridden and walked over that and not thought twice about it. And then I've got my 2 kids in front of me on horses.
And you start thinking,
I see how high off the ground they are, and I'm worried sick that these horses, what's their dude horses, they've been on that trail so many times, who cares, right? But as a father, I'm having a whole new reality check. And then I don't think my dad or grandpa thought twice about us kids on them horses going over.
Probably not.
Danger Point. It was just
probably not
commonplace.
Right.
So yeah, it was a great trip. I'll cherish that one.
That's
forever.
Awesome. I've had a couple of those out there. I've had a couple of those out there in those drainages that I'll remember forever.
Yeah,
for sure. So growing up, you lived in a small town. Pomeroy is a really small town.
800, I think, was the population when I went. I graduated with 30 kids.
Yeah. Wow. That's small.
And most of those we were K through 12, and I was related to about 2/3 of them.
Yeah. Right.
So My mother and father married, brought the north and the south part of the county together, and I was doomed for dating.
I can relate. I can relate to that. I was telling you, my dad owned the most popular bar in the county, and so everybody knew Big Ed, and everybody knew Ed's kid.
Yep.
And I couldn't get away with shit.
Yep.
So I got really good at being nefarious.
That's right. That's right.
And I just never got caught.
As me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. I mean, some of the conversations that we were having in the camp trailer were super reminiscent to my own upbringing, because it did the same thing. Small town, couple, maybe bigger than Pomeroy, probably 1,500 people. But I went to a melting pot school where there was, people from other towns and villages.
Sure.
I think I graduated with like 400 kids.
Okay.
So it was a fairly big school in that realm, but my town was really small.
Right.
So, great way to grow up though, in the sense of, I remember getting home from school and I would grab a shotgun and I would get on my bike and I would pedal through town and I'd go shoot squirrels and rabbits until it got dark.
Yeah.
So, that was really, I think for me, instrumental in wanting to go do what I did in the military. So what year did you join the Marine Corps?
1985.
1985.
I didn't go right out of high school. I decided to work harvest in the summer to build up my bank account, not knowing what I was getting into, and go in and at least whatever happened, and I'd have some money in the bank or whatever. So I went in September.
Okay.
And then sea duty was right after. And then you did ask me earlier, but what came to that? I decided to go in the Marine Corps because of the whole thing with college, and I was probably destined for that anyway. But yeah, so right out of boot camp, ITS, not SOI then.
Right.
And then from there, orders to sea school. So back down to MCRD in San Diego. I think sea duty school or sea school was 4 or 6 weeks, and then orders to USS Enterprise, and was on sea duty for 2 years.
I bet you that was a pretty cool experience, though, to be on board a boat.
Looking back, it was. At the time, it wasn't. We were on 2-section duty, meaning your off day was also your training day. At sea, it didn't matter.
Right.
But in port, your off day was also your training day. So you'd get off at 06:30 in the morning, or I think 06. 06 in the morning, you would get relieved by the other section and turn to training. So now you're on training day from 06 to 16:30, and then that rest that time until the next day is your off time.
Okay.
So not a lot of time off. And then at sea, you're constantly on 4 on, 4 off, 4 on, 4 off. And you're rotating with another section with different responsibilities and stuff. And then you start off as a post stander when you're brand new.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you become on the reactionary team, or in today's terms, an assaulter.
Okay.
You're doing CQC on the boat, and we had responsibilities, areas of protecting the special weapons, which we all know what those were in the day, and and the captain and admiral. There were 70 of us and 5,000 sailors.
Mm-hmm.
And we were given a lot of power. Really looking back, probably too much power from our first sergeant, which was an old crusty Vietnam vet. 7 of us checked in onto the ship, and he said, "You will not make any friends with sailors or fraternize with them manner whatsoever." When you walk down, and you know what ship life's like, you're walking down the right side, and it's like traffic.
Yep. Gangway or sick bay.
That's exactly right. So, but with us, he's like, you will walk down the middle of the passageway and part everybody like the Red Sea, and put the fear of God in every sailor on the ship, because there's 70 of us and 5,000 of them, and they need to fear us. So, and rightly so, right? Now, we have weapons, and we ran hot. Every time we left there on a drill, which ended up being a drill, but we secured areas, we ran hot. And I still think back to that. I knew it was a drill. We ran hot, but they just kind of a wild thing, right? But get up there, you secure the area and that kind of thing. And we had carte blanche. If a sailor got in the way, man, you'd butt stroke them, put them on the ground, zip tie them with no zip ties back then. You would cuff them up and and we would suck them up and process them and the whole thing. So
that was a point in time in history when we were at the tail end of the Cold War, right?
yeah.
And so that was that mission was taken most likely very seriously.
Oh, way, yeah.
Yeah, like this is not like Hollywood bullshit. Like, this is real deal stuff.
Yeah.
We have a national security responsibility.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So we're cutting squares out in the Indian Ocean. If they wanted the Russians to know where the ship was, they'd let them know. They would launch a couple of planes, and they let them old Russian Bears look like World War II bombers. They'd let them fly over. So we would have a steel beach party at the time. And they would announce over the 1MC that the Russian Bears come, and they would let them get close. Like, you could look up and see the pilots. And I'm sure they were taking pictures. And of course, we're up there in PT gear and whatever, and they would announce on the 1MC, we've got the Russian Bear coming in over the port bow. Make sure you give them the proper all-American smile. So, everybody's dropping trowel.
Right. Oh, man.
And doing that. And so it's just weird to see that. The big red star on the fuselage. I mean, there we're close.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. So then then darkness would come, and we would steam hard.
Just to move as fast as possible to
Yep.
go.
Yeah.
Right.
Move fast as possible to shake them, whatever. I don't know exactly how fast that boat did. It was always classified. They would say it would do 30 to 31 knots or something like that. And I've heard different things, but I did know, and I talking to an engineer when I was on the boat, he said this thing will literally outrun itself, meaning it would shake itself apart. It will go so fast.
Sure. Right.
So, and at times we would be up to speed, and that boat would, I say a boat, 300-yard
it's
air
big,
platform.
It's big shit.
You feel it just humming and shaking.
Right.
So,
that's a lot of power. And
a lot of power.
A boat that size moving at even 30 knots.
Oh, yeah. The wake it puts out is tremendous.
Oh, man, they're huge. And you don't realize how big they are until you're actually on one.
Right.
And then you go, this is a big boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from there, I went to 1st Battalion, 4th Marines at the time.
Okay.
The only grunt infantry unit in Twin Palms. Picked it on purpose because, as I think I was telling you the other day, the Enterprise had 8 reactors. It was the first nuclear aircraft carrier, along with, I think, a destroyer, and I want to say it was a Nautilus sub. The first 3 nuclear reactor ships in the fleet. So it had 8 reactors. After that, all the other ones that followed it had 4 reactors. To be deployable, he had to have 2 online running. Oftentimes, like the Nimitz or the America or whatever, wouldn't have 2 ready, and we would have to pick up that slack, either stay out to sea longer or go in deployment faster to relieve them, because we always had 2 working reactors.
Okay.
So I wanted to experience the Fleet Marine Force, but I didn't want to have to deploy anymore.
Got it.
And at the time, 1-4 was non-deployable. So 1-4 I go. I end up there in headquarters checking in. You're in your alphas in the green alphas, the SRB in hand. And at the time, because all the overseas stuff I had done in the 80s, hardly any Marines had any ribbons. Here I am, a Lance Cooley, checking in with 2 rows, and I think 7 ribbons total, right? 2 rows and the start of another one. Interaction with a first sergeant from C&E school.
Automatic ego trigger.
Well, we're checking in, and we're in uniform, and he sees us. And he's like, you guys are perpetrating a fraud here. Why you...
Oh, okay. He went that route.
Oh, yeah. He goes, why you got all them ribbons? You don't rate them. We have our SOBs in hand. We're like, we're checking in. Whatever. And then he just calms down. But anyway, we're checking in. We're sitting in the hallway. A bunch of other Marines. You know the deal when the cycle of check-in. There's other people from other units checking in and change of orders. And sitting in there, the sergeant comes in the other door down the passageway and says, hey, any expert shooters in here, put your hands up in the air. Okay, hands up in the air. Of those that have their hands up in the air, who are high PFT, first class PFT are high, first class PFTers. Okay, some hands are going down now. Who's got first class swim qual or above? Now more hands gone down. Comes up, this kid's sitting beside me, and he says, "Where are you from?" "New York." "City or state?" "City." "Put your hand down." Looks at me, says, "Where are you from?" "Washington State." "You fish, you hunt, you do that kind of stuff?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Get your shit and come with me."
Just like that.
Went to state platoon. He was looking for guys, and that was it. And my buddy Tracy, who we went all 4 years together. Met at ITS, and we're all 4 years together. Went to sniper school together and the whole thing. And so he came with me, and one more guy from Sea Duty, Kennedy, and him and I actually bunked together in boot camp.
Okay.
So we're in state platoon. Kennedy doesn't get an opportunity to go to sniper school. Tracy and I were there for 2 or 3 months, and we're off to sniper school just like that. I guess Sergeant Navarro was the guy we were working for. He had been an instructor at the schoolhouse, was from 2-7, went over to 1-4, and we were his pigs, and he put it to us, man, for 2 weeks.
That was like your pre-sniper.
Yeah, it was pre-sniper and NDOC all in once.
Okay, all right.
We went clandestinely down to Camp Pendleton without having any training areas checked out because he wanted to get us ready for school. So we did all the stock areas, and we stayed up in Duluth Canyon, way up in there where nobody ever goes. Yep. And that's where we camped out and operated out of for 2 weeks, and he just killed us every day.
I think that Duluth has a warm place in all West Coast snipers' hearts. Because that's where everybody goes, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. So quick to sniper school, did that, and by happenstance we lost our platoon sergeant and chief scout at the same time, and sometimes I think they were being cruel to me and promoted me to corporal just to punish me and put me in charge of a bunch of knuckleheads that were just like me. So I became the chief scout and then the acting platoon sergeant for just about a year while I was there. And as a corporal trying to fill those shoes, I made a lot of enemies with officers.
Oh, man, I bet.
And other platoon sergeants and stuff like that. They didn't like us, but our colonel loved us. So he knew how to employ us. He loved us so that we got over on a lot of things that normally we wouldn't have. So
I bet it's funny you mention that, because that really can make or break your experience.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the taste in your mouth of your Marine Corps experience can, and I'm speaking from doing 8 years of active duty and having seen several different commands that have both pros and cons against snipers.
Yeah.
And seeing the difference between someone who has like this vendetta against your organization and your for what it is that you stand for. And then I've also seen the other end of the spectrum where that commanding officer has seen the benefit of what a well-trained sniper platoon can do. And it actually, and in this particular situation, this commander, he was an operations officer for an infantry battalion during the invasion in 2003 in March. And a small faction of Republican Guard dudes had amassed enough, and they posed an attack on, I think it was definitely one of the 5th Marine Regiment battalions. And they hit the company CP. And it was, basically the way that he explained it was, this was no bullshit. Like, this was an intense fight. And the snipers were able to occupy positions, reduce targets of opportunity, and essentially allow infantry to maneuver and gain superiority on the enemy,
right,
and destroy them. And so from that point on, he looked at snipers from this perspective of, oh, I see how these guys work. Like,
just saved our bacon.
Yeah, and he understood the level of asset that he had available to him, and then he would later become my CO at sniper school.
Okay.
And tremendous officer, amazing man, great human being, down to earth. And I just recently, I reconnected with him it was probably about a year ago now. His name is Stephen Arms.
Okay.
And he retired as a full bird colonel, and now he does. Now he's always been an extreme athlete, like a triathlete.
Yeah.
And so now what he does is he takes people on these cross country bike tours from East Coast to West Coast.
Yeah.
And he does it for charitable organizations and things like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, really good, really amazing officer. And so seeing that perspective, that difference between officers that just, it's almost like they just have a bone to pick with what it is that you stand for. And then these officers over here that are combat veterans that understand what that asset is,
right,
how to use it properly, and the effectiveness with which it can be used. Man, yeah, it's a night and day difference. What's up, guys? I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you guys about Really Right Stuff tripods. In my personal opinion, Really Right Stuff tripods are the best tripod that you can use to shoot from, observe from, and use as a general purpose tripod for everything that you need in the world of precision shooting or long range hunting. I have the TVC 22, and this tripod is what I use primarily for competitive shooting because it only has one leg and one leg lock, and it makes this really easy to use, especially for situations where you need to use the tripod for tripod rear support. The tripod that is the workhorse of my loadout is the TFC T34L. This is what I use for the vast majority of all of my shooting and observing needs. This is the long version because I want to make sure that I have the most length and the most capability for all the situations that I could find myself in the mountains. A lighter version of the 34L is the TFC T24L, and it's got a smaller leg diameter and it's a little bit lighter for more packability, but you don't sacrifice any stability using the 24L. All of these tripods that you see here feature the Anvil 30 head. Now, the Anvil 30 head is probably what separates Really Right Stuff from everything else out there on the market. The Anvil 30 head is where all of the stability in the platform comes from with regard to shooting. What Really Right Stuff did is they inverted a ball head from the traditional way of having the ball downward, and they inverted and put the ball upward, and it uses an extremely strong clamp that really locks things into place, and it truly is an anvil. You just can't go wrong with a Really Right Stuff tripod. That's all I choose to shoot from and observe from, and I hope you guys will take a look at them and add them to your arsenal.
Yeah, it's funny. So fast forward to the current commandant who got rid of snipers, and we all have our feelings about that. I thought I was directly responsible for that because it's Commandant Smith. There was a Captain Smith in 3-7 after we shifted colors, and he hated me. Being that young corporal, and of course after sniper school, you know, all the training we had, especially with mission planning, we understood mission planning to a level those company commanders did not. As you know, we were trained to the level to understand what the battalion commander needed.
Correct.
And all the assets to help him put the package together. And our Lieutenant Colonel Hannigan was our battalion commander, and he loved us. And a couple of times doing mission planning stuff, I was tied to Alpha Company, which is Captain Smith. And in the mission planning, those officers will break away and go do their things, and we come back. And with the old man scheme maneuver, they would present their plan. And at the end of it, the colonel would say, "Corporal Taylor, what do you got for me? What can state platoon do for me?" "Well, sir, if we put snipers here, here, and here, we can do this for you and assist you with this, and we can call in Navy guns, and we have close air support. We're capable of doing artillery and everything you need is supporting arms. Our radio's our best friend, and we can give you precision fire from selected positions." And almost verbatim.
Drill. Yeah, it's verbatim.
Verbatim, right? Almost the definition of sniper, but not quite.
Mm-hmm.
So he would look at the officers. He goes, "Based on Corporal Taylor's input here, I want you guys to go rework your plans." So I'm you're automatically got a target on my back.
Man, there's a book out there by Robert Greene called The 48 Laws of Power, and it's a fantastic book, and I would strongly recommend that you read it because the first rule is don't outshine the master.
Right.
And in that situation, you're outshining the master.
Oh,
This
absolutely.
young corporal that's asking these questions that, you know, a normal infantry corporal is not going to understand nor be proficient in,
Yeah.
and have intellectual capability of having those conversations.
Right.
That's deeply triggering.
Oh, absolutely. I just, through that guy's career, who's been in the Marine Corps longer than me, outranks me. He's in charge of how many men? Mm-hmm. I've just rendered him an idiot in front of his boss.
That's bad.
That's terrible. But as a young corporal that I'm wanting to shine,
Yeah.
and do my best at my boss,
Yep.
is really the colonel, even though I'm farmed out to a company level commander.
Right.
And yeah, he hated me. So when we got defunct as a community by Commandant Smith, I'm like, oh my God, is it the same Smith? Did I just screw the whole sniper community?
Well, is it?
No, it's
No,
not.
it's not.
I find out. No, actually, you probably know Tony Parkhurst, who was president of the association.
Yep.
And I'm talking to him when this is all going down. I'm like, you need to find this out, man, because I'm feeling like an asshat right now. Mm-hmm. And it's not the same Smith.
Got it.
So, big.
That's great. All right. So, what made you decide to get out of the Marine Corps?
So all the deployments I was on at the time, I was married loosely. It was a bad marriage. She was pregnant with my first child, Max, who you inadvertently met and now know who he is.
Yep, I know who he is now.
And I've actually got orders in hand to go down to Force Recon.
Okay.
Knew the first sergeant there. We supported him. When we shifted colors to 3-7, we were doing a lot of support with them. We were getting like 7 seats at a time down the sniper school because we were the only desert unit. And at the time, we had these barges out in the Straits of Hormuz, the Hercules and another one. And Ken, who you met, actually deployed on that, one of those. And so my mission at that point was to get my guys ready in the state platoon to go fill that bill, and we were farming them out to SEAL teams and recon teams. And the sniper assets back in the day, recon really didn't have snipers, and neither did the SEAL teams. Mm-hmm. So they would come to us, and we were getting massive seats in school. And back then, the attrition rate was 70%. Mm-hmm. So it was on us. And Navarro, my old chief scout, having been an instructor, he really instilled a work ethic into us of getting that next generation of snipers ready. And at the time, 3-7 had the highest. Now we padded a little bit by having a lot of seats in there than in any other battalions. But we had the highest graduation rate for years because of him, and then me, and then after. Not because of what I did, I just followed his recipe. Mm-hmm. He was a great mentor, and I just followed that recipe, man. It's not really what I did. I just stuck to the plan. Mm-hmm. So really proud of that. And coming down to it, I loved what I was doing. Was in a terrible marriage. The deployment I had been on for almost 2 years straight on the Enterprise, I'm thinking, do I want to raise? And I had a platoon sergeant that I had for just a little bit, and I saw how he interacted with his kids, and it was terrible. And I'm like, man, do I want that? And went all the way down to 2 weeks, and they beginning crapper, get off the pot here because we're not going to hold this spot for you. And I had orders in my hand to go down to force, and I regret not doing that, but I got out. And got out, went back to Pomeroy, lived there for a little bit. Worked for some farmers that I had worked for, trying to get back on my feet. And my uncle actually retired from the agency. He did 30 years with the agency, and to pad his income or his retirement, he worked at the prison down in Walla Walla, Washington State Penitentiary.
Okay.
So he paid the way down there for me to get a job. So got a job down there, and I spent 7 years working in the prison system in Washington State.
Okay.
In that time, I went back in the reserves.
Got it. Okay.
and up here in Spokane, an artillery unit. And because of the Scout Sniper MOS, they put me as the section chief for the FOs. And the first few drills there, I just kind of observed, see where they're at, all these guys, doing their job. And they were all great FOs, not taking anything. They didn't have great leadership because they had a different mentality, more of an artillery mentality. We truck everywhere, we do this. And what the FOs, I think they knew, but they didn't really understand, when the balloon goes up, they're going to be attached to infantry units. And they weren't doing infantry things. So when I got in there, the first few drills, I just kept my mouth shut, and we went up to Yakima on the OPs and the high backs and with the coffee makers and the generators and all these comforts. So, and then I kind of put the kibosh to that, and we deployed in the middle of the night, and they had all the stuff that they normally had, and I told the drivers, I said, all right, we're going to drive to this grid, and I want you to stop. And you know how Yakima can be in the winter.
Oh, it's
well, you live there.
It's the Yakima Training Center is the most. It's like 29 Palms,
but cold,
but even worse.
Yes,
it's so bad.
So it was winter, and we're out there, and we stop, and I get out, and I open the back of the Hummers, and I said, all right, get out, get your kit, let's go. Like, what? They're all confused. We're 3 clicks out. It's not huge, but it's straight up to the OP. And I'm stripping down, putting my Gore-Tex into my bag.
Yep.
And they're looking at me, and they're putting their stuff on, keeping their Gore-Tex on. I'm like, look, you need to get that off, like a good platoon sergeant's going to do. And I'm telling you, but if you want to continue to touch the stove, I'm going to let you.
Yeah, you got to learn somehow.
So a few of them kept their Gore-Tex on, and you know what happened? Sweating their butts off all the way up for 3 clicks. And
everything's wet.
Everything's wet and they're freezing. So now, retrospectively, that was a bad decision, because now I've got guys that are on the edge of being hypothermic.
And that's very easy to do out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's no kidding, it's dangerous.
The wind is the worst thing.
Brutal.
And we're up on top of this ridge line. OP3, I think, is where we were at the time, if you've been out on the training center. And
a couple times, yeah.
Yeah, so we're on OP3 there, and oh my gosh, it was bad. So, okay, I won't do that to them again. I won't, crush their souls. But they learned hard. And then from that time, when we would do home stuff down here in Spokane, big into land nav.
Yep.
Because now they knew it. They could look and they could call targets great, but movement wasn't so great. So I would take them out in the Spokane not Riverfront Park. There's a park along the river down in Spokane at a state park. And we'd go out there and do a lot of land nav. And I would set up map and compass courses for them. And kind of back to the days at sniper school and into the platoons, and that would make them timed events and make them do field sketches and bring that environment to them, things that they would have had to have done back in that time. Mm-hmm. So,
those real core field skills.
Yes, real core field skills.
Yeah, that like it solidifies. I'm glad you brought that up, because as things progress, everything's going to progress, right? The battlefield's going to progress, TTPs are going to progress, and now we have this thing called MSIDS.
Yeah.
And MSIDS was a camera system that can hook up. The early fledgling days of it was the early days of MSIDS was the end of my career in like 2003 to 5 timeframe. And so the SIDS came online first, well, maybe it was about 2001 they started to really come online, but this was the point at which we were like, oh, I don't have to do a field sketch anymore. I just have to take a picture, and then I have to set, but I have to rely on technology to do that.
Right.
And there were many times in that fledgling technology that it didn't function as it should.
Right.
And so now I have to go meet up. I have to do it the old school way. And I've got a unit that just inserted a helicopter, a helicopter attack or a helicopter assault. That company just inserted. It's in movement to contact. And now I have to link my boys up, my sniper team up, and we have to navigate to them, hand them off an intel dump, like a field sketch, because I can't do it. I can't give them what they need because my technology isn't functioning as it should. Whether I don't have comm or I don't have the Dama bird or
Sure.
something like that happens, we have to be able to revert back to those legacy skills to accomplish the mission that we need to accomplish.
Yes.
It's still completely applicable.
Yeah, well, and that goes back to, and I know you preach it, and Jacob and Frank and Terry, and I preach it. It's fundamentals.
I'm glad you bring that up. So what are let's go back to marksmanship, because there's fundamentals for everything, right? When it comes to marksmanship, what are your thoughts on what are the core fundamentals of marksmanship?
The core 7 fundamentals of marksmanship that we were all taught. That maybe the Marine Corps has gotten to the 8th one now too, like the Army does. It used to drive me nuts when they say, and recover. Well, aren't you already recovering when you're doing follow through? You just drive me nuts. Semantics, I get it.
Semantics, okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So, but the 7 fundamentals of marksmanship, and really heavy on natural point of aim, trigger control, and follow through. All right. And then we work through, and I spend a lot of time on guys because I see they're not focusing on the crosshair like they should be. They think they're in a telescopic sight and they can see everything at the same amount of clarity. And as soon as I start preaching, focus on your damn crosshairs. Everything else is jiving for them, I can tell. And they're missing still, especially on movers.
Okay. Yep.
Especially on movers. You've got to focus on that lead and let that fuzzy thing come in, and when it hits your lead, let that round go. And Heidi, for example, the day she started to crush him, as I happened to be there when she was going through it, and she was excited and thankful, and I'm like, look, I'm not giving you any magic, I'm just helping you through this.
So your thought process is, in that particular situation, because you do have 2 things now that you have to pay attention to. You got to pay attention to the target, and then you have to pay attention to the reticle itself for the proper lead in front of the target.
So there's a lot of things going on that shooters don't understand what they're doing because they've not broken it down. You're doing so many focal shifts in a scope. Identifying your targets, number one thing you've got to do. Now you got to figure out if you're going to hold over, what that's going to be, or if you're going to dial, fair enough. But then you're back in the scope for another focal shift at the target, back to the reticle, at the target, back to the reticle. You're doing this a few times. You're doing a minimum of 3 just on a stationary target.
Yeah, okay.
And multiple of them as you're tracking and, doing the 2 methods, because I don't know anybody that can really do, unless you do like when we were in sniper school, you find something vertical to hang on. You know that it's coming where it's going to come.
Yep.
And then lay up for it. But if you are tracking and then ambushing, you are doing so many focal shifts. When you lay up, you've got a laser beam onto your lead, and just like on a pistol, your target has to be fuzzy. Front sight tip's got to be locked on, and you have to trust your sight. And we talked about that a little bit during your training. Once you start trusting your front sight, you're going to find your sight.
Okay.
And things will start clicking.
Okay.
But until you focus on it like a laser beam, you don't trust it. You're constantly doubting your ability, where your wobble zone is. You're not trusting your wobble, and you're not trusting your front sight, and you're not focused on it like a laser beam. You're still doing focal shifts, and then people have dispersions in their impacts because they're out of their focal point on their, like losing your front sight. You're going to have dispersions on the short radius weapons at a shorter distance.
Big time, yeah.
Right? But it's the same thing in a scope. You move that eye, you don't realize what you're doing. A lot of times your head's moving with it a little bit. That is taking, like, talk about the size of a hair. How much are you moving the scope with the size of a hair?
0.003 of an inch.
How much is a movement like this with your head? What's it doing translating to the muzzle? So with all the moving target stuff we do, I see so much more of it than you see on a stationary target. Which transitions back onto a stationary target, I can correct that faster.
Right.
And see that.
I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, so that's going to be another little segue, I think maybe for a later episode, because I do want to come back up here and shoot some movers with you and talk about some different techniques like that. Because it's interesting. I learned a bunch of that stuff, a bunch more deeper stuff about focal points and focal shifts doing aerial rifle stuff.
Yes.
Went down to Dillon, spent a couple days shooting out of the Huey, doing like all day shooting. Right?
Yes.
Doing lots and lots of runs, and learning how to shift. We were doing all this stuff. It wasn't with scoped rifles. It was all like vehicle interdiction type stuff, carbines and red dots, and the ability to. It's almost like you're looking at two things at once.
Yes.
Once you get really tuned in to what's happening, and you can see the lag. Right, you're looking at the dot. That's the lag, and then you're looking at the target.
But your reverse lead.
Yeah, you got to do the reverse lead, right? So then you're saying, okay, I'm estimating it's 11 feet, whatever it is, based upon the mathematics, and you start to realize, like, wait a minute, I can see the dot, but I can also see the beaten zone of my rounds, and I can shift the beatens. I can shift the lag, right?
Yeah.
Almost intuitively, but I'm definitely looking at two different things because I can't. It's the 11 feet of difference.
Yes.
And I'm in a moving platform, and so I've got all of this parallax going on at the same time simultaneously. And once it clicks, and once you start to figure it out, it becomes more intuition than anything else.
Yes.
Because you just start to see that sight picture, and you know what it is. And Jacob and I did a topic on moving targets, and I'd love to hear your point of view on this. And the way Jacob, he says, you start off with understanding the lead point at somewhere, right? You have to say, like, the mover we shot today, I needed, my base lead was 1.2 on the close one, and my base lead for the far one was 1.5.
Yeah.
That's a starting point. But once you achieve that starting point, your eye starts to track what that target's doing, and you can see the vertical stadia.
Yes.
I start staring at that in a sense where I can visualize the distance between the middle of the target and the leading edge, or the vertical stadia.
Yeah.
And as soon as that looks the way it should, I'm pressing the trigger.
Yes.
And
it's really I tell guys that are trying to do proper trigger control, I'll say, okay, look, you're doing proper trigger control, and that's great. I'm going to tell you this. The only situation I'm going to tell you this in, when you're shooting movers, you have to crush that trigger when it's time.
Okay.
Right? A controlled jerk. Mm-hmm. And that's a terrible thing to tell a shooter.
Yeah, you are trying to make it happen now.
You've got to make it when you're leading, when your lead point is on that target, that round has to leave the tube.
Yep.
It's got to happen now.
Right.
You can't have that surprise break. It's got to happen now.
So, if you're training properly, though, if you've got good trigger finger placement, you've got good grip, and you've already solidified the physiological and physical motion of pressing the trigger.
Yep.
It really shouldn't matter how fast you press it, as long as I'm holding onto the rifle properly.
Yep.
And I'm making a good solid connection. I'm using the body position from those foundational principles, and I'm doing everything consistently. Then it really shouldn't matter.
No.
Right?
So with that controlled jerk comment that's to get them out of the mindset that they got to slowly press. They're losing their lead. So once they start learning, okay, now I know where this is breaking faster. I'm taking the slack up faster. I'm doing these things faster. Then we get back into, all right, now you know where this has to go off. Now you're learning, and they're going to have some dispersions on the target until they learn, okay, I can press properly but faster.
Yes.
Not taking that long squeeze that you normally would on a stationary target.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right? So now once we start having success, their confidence rise. Now we can slow them down. Okay, remember what you saw. Remember all that. Let's start duplicating that and just coaching them through it. Pretty soon, they're getting good. I can take a raw shooter in a matter of a day or two, just if we're doing movers. And Brent and I did this when we were competing a lot. Now, if I go out on the range right now, I'm going to look like a fool. But we would take 45%ers at 450 yards, and we would start practicing on those, getting it down. And we were getting to the point where we were getting so good that we were getting 50 to 60% accuracy rate on that little head on a 45%er. And that was our bet for the day on who could shoot the most headshots on the 45%er when we're practicing movers.
Just a straight intuition.
Yeah,
Eventually you get to that point.
absolutely.
You start being intuitive.
Absolutely. It almost becomes what a lot of guys call instinctive shooting.
Yeah.
With a pistol, where you're not even picking up your sights, but on a scoped rifle, you're picking those sights up, but you know, you've trained your eye, those neurons are all cooking, you know what it needs to look like and everything that has to happen.
Yeah.
And you can do that with a lot of rounds, of course. You know?
It does it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
A lot of practice. So, okay, well, let's get back to, you got out of the Marine Corps, you came back to Pomeroy, you decided to get back in the reserves. So you're working in the FO section.
Yep.
And did you get back into the sniper community at all, or was it, what did you?
Loosely here and there.
Okay.
So I stayed in the long range game, passionate for it.
Mm-hmm.
Started shooting F class with a bunch of 100-pound heads down around Hanford and the nuclear reservation.
Okay.
Doing that. They're worried about groups,
Mm-hmm.
and they're teaching me about reloading and tiny little groups and all this kind of stuff. So I learned a lot about ballistics from those cats, and shot a lot of tiny groups at 1,000 yards with my precision rifle, not the bench rest stuff they were doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say F class, bench rest.
Yep.
I was shooting off my old bag because when I went through sniper school, we couldn't have tripods, and
Yep.
I was still in that mindset that you have to shoot off a bag and the whole thing. So still those practices and doing well. I wasn't winning first in those F-class matches against those big old rail guns those guys were shooting and hardly even touching. Mm-hmm. But I was doing well against them. I'm keeping up with them and doing well, and learned a lot. And then that turned into tactical matches when it was all paper. Nobody had steel at the time. We're doing all belly stuff from yard lines and that kind of thing. So just kind of stayed with it. And then through the prison, the CERT team found out about the sniper background. So I started training the local prison CERT snipers.
Okay.
And then that turned into other agencies around finding out that I would be doing a training, and they would come.
Send their people.
And then that just kind of grew and grew and grew. And then I decided to put my own shingle out, much like, so when you got started, somebody was asking me today, how does Caylen get started? I said, much like I did. He just put a shingle out there and started going.
Pretty much.
And I'm so proud of you, because a lot of guys do that and then quit for whatever reason. Well, we know the reasons. They're just not thick-headed enough to stick it out, right? Yeah. So, just the same thing. And I quit the prison, had $11,000, and my father was so mad at me. I left this government job. I've got 2 kids. I'm separated. My life is a mess. Mm-hmm. I'd already started contracting, doing government contracting, which wasn't sick back then. Hardly anybody knew about it. That same uncle that got me into the prison work retired from the agency, the CIA, 30 years. And he was pretty high up the food chain. And he got me onto gigs. Not what you know, sometimes it's who you know. And I got into all kinds of work that normally I would probably not have gotten on, but I could build myself a good reputation. Mm-hmm. And in the contract mafia, as I call it, if you got a good reputation, you can do just about anything if they think you have the skill sets and aptitude to do it. So I've mingled with a lot of cats that normally we would not have ever mingled with unless we would have done the long walk or different things. And I feel very fortunate to have worked with a lot of guys over the years that just aces of guys,
Right.
High-level dudes. And I don't consider myself on that level. I was just blessed to be able to learn a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And work with a lot of folks.
I can resonate with that too. I got an opportunity to spend a couple of weeks with an ODA on my deployment to Iraq, and that was the solidification of me saying, hey, like, yeah, I'm going to go take the long walk. I'm going to go to that route because of the utmost level of professionalism that those guys exuded
Sure.
in that short amount of time. In the sense that they weren't disorganized in any way, but here I am, you know, I'm a senior sergeant. I'm about ready to pick up E6. I ended up picking up E6 and staying as a team leader, which much like you were talking about people getting pissed off. Talk about pissed off staff and COs. Like, I'm a staff sergeant still in charge of the sniper team. I'm not. That's it.
Yeah.
And it really, really made a lot of people upset.
Oh, sure.
So having that opportunity to work with that ODA, for whatever reason, I was blessed to have been able to do that. Seeing what those guys did, seeing the missions that they were doing, and the activities that we were doing in that such a short amount of time span, and then seeing the professionalism of that ODA, and seeing how they all work together in such a small organization.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like I was actually listening to Tom Spooner's podcast on the Sean Ryan Show. And Tom brought up a really good point in saying that he was talking about when he would work with, you know, regular infantry guys. Those regular infantry guys would look at those guys as like their protectors.
Yes.
Right? They would look up to them as their guardians because everybody knows that the level of infantrymen that those guys are.
Right.
It's the creme de la creme, man.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the varsity.
Yeah. It's like, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
they're the best infantrymen in the fucking world. Right. So, and I got that even working with an ODA, which is just another layer below. I got that feeling, right? I always felt safe.
Yeah.
Meaning I knew we were doing really dangerous shit, but I always felt safe because I knew I was in the company of professionals that they knew that they could depend on one another, and I could also depend on them, and that I just had to fit in, right? I just said, like, with me, the guy was like, I'm not a machine gunner, and one of them came up to me, and we were driving to an objective, and they said, hey, Wojcik, you're going to get in the 50 cal truck. And I was like, okay, well, I've only shot 50 cal a couple times, man. So just like get me spun up. And they were just like, hey, roger that, no problem. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do that. And if you need any help, man, just call me on the radio.
Right.
Good. Like literally 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just like, hey, man, so you need to do your job. You need to do your job. You need to do it well. And if you have questions, you got to ask.
Yeah.
And they were super professional the whole time. And
But interject a little bit. Those guys, and back to our community, my embrace from all those high-level dudes, because of being a Marine sniper, we were given, and maybe you had the same experience, but that gave me an open door into a lot of places I probably couldn't have got into otherwise. The respect that we had in those other communities as being snipers and that kind of stuff.
yeah, but I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you could just fall in, right?
We can operate with
yeah,
it. We know how to do all the base stuff.
Exactly. You know, you need me to work radio, I can work radio.
Yeah.
You need me to work machine guns, I can work machine guns. You need me to do, I was a little shaky on mortars, right? But, I mean, it's pretty simple. You point the tube that way and put that thing down the tube, right? Like, it's general understanding of basic infantry skills.
Yeah.
And I think I was looking back on this, and when I was a kid, I read a lot of books. I was fascinated with being in the military. Like, I started to do this when I was about 10 years old. My grandfathers were both military veterans. My dad's father jumped into Normandy with the 82nd Airborne, went from D-Day all the way through VE Day, a couple Purple Hearts, just a gangster, right? Like, those men were gangsters, right? They did so much with so little.
Yeah.
With just such tremendous odds, right? And then my mother's father fought in Korea as a combat engineer with the Army.
That's even worse.
I mean, right? Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. So then I had a couple uncles on my father's side, service Marines. One was 21 years. Another did 4 as an avionics guy. So I had a litany of military service. And so I started reading books when I was a kid because, my dad wasn't interested in the military stuff. He was doing his thing as a bar owner,
Sure.
right? Not really around a lot because he's trying to make everything work. My mom is like a Greenpeace activist at the time, and I start killing stuff out of the back porch, and she's terrified.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't understand how to handle this level of boy. And so my only outlet was to grab as many books as I could, and I was like, hey, that's my gateway, right, to this. And again, going back, Tom Spooner talked about it. He said, I read this book, Charlie Rangers. And I was like, I read that same book, right? And that was one of those books that it was just about long-range reconnaissance dudes in Vietnam. And it was just like reading about those guys, the Force Recon dudes in Vietnam, reading like Tom Clancy by the time I was like 13 years old. Yeah. I was already visualizing myself doing these things. So everything I did in the military, I picked up like super fast.
Right.
I just had to see it. You gave me an opportunity to see it and do it. And the loop was closed.
Right.
And I learned it. Done deal. And I look back now, and it was because I wanted it so badly.
Sure.
As a young kid.
Yeah.
That I visualized myself doing it as I was reading about it. And I was like, one day I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So then when I was finally able to be exposed to it, it was like, oh yeah, I remember reading about this. Like, you got to do this with this thing and that with that thing. And now I'm seeing it in real time. And I'm like, loop closed, done. Let's move on.
Right.
Right. So everything came really natural and very easy to me. There's a couple things that I struggled with, but for the most part, like navigation and like that was super easy to me.
Yeah.
Like that land nav was like, cool. I get to walk around in the woods. Badass. Like,
yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Well, Camp Pendleton, navigating on that, it was almost like being home because the Palouse is the same kind of terrain.
You don't even need a map.
Right.
You don't
just
need a map.
go.
Just like, hey, let's
Terrain associated.
There,
yeah.
Off you go.
Yeah.
So, and if you need to see something, just climb your ass up out of the hole and
that's it.
And we can see something. Right.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. So I learned a lot of those skills and being able to, to visualize things. And it's weird because I just now started to connect those dots at this age in my life where it's like now, we're visual learners, we're audible learners, we're kinesthetic learners, and everybody learns 2 out of those main 3.
Yes.
2 main ones out of those 3. And so even to this day, like when I was learning how to fly airplanes, I was like, okay, well, that was difficult. The navigation piece was simple because I already had that, and navigating with an airplane is pretty important. But like learning how to fly was difficult in the sense because I didn't ever read about it. I read a little bit about it as a kid, like, fiction on fighter pilots and things
Sure.
like that. So I knew the general principles of flight, but like once you're sitting at the controls of an airplane, it feels different. You have to learn how the plane feels and how the plane reacts to your inputs. So that's not something that you can learn by just reading about.
Right.
You actually have to do that.
Yeah.
So, and shooting's the exact same way.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to feel it and experience it to do it. So okay. So, you are the founder of the Scout Sniper Association. When did you come about to do that? And what was your reasoning behind doing that?
So I was working with an SF group in the late 90s, and one of the kids is talking about the SF Association, whatever their Green Bay Association, I can't remember what it's called. Internet's brand new.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, wow, I wonder if we got one. So
Okay.
I go on, I'm searching, there's nothing. And like, okay, well, wonder what it would take to start something. And I start researching that and start going down that pipeline. Another guy gets me in contact with John Carlin is the guy's name, another hog, East Coast guy. He's got the same idea about the same time. So we actually get on the phone. Now, he's a little bit further down that rabbit hole than I am. But then all of a sudden, he, like a lot of us, went through terrible divorce and fell off the end of the world. Never heard from him just recently. I had some emails with him, but since 97, I hadn't heard from him. So I'm like, well, I don't know what happened to him. I'm just going to keep running with this.
Okay.
And just kind of cobbled it together and not knowing really anything about anything. And I'm like, all right, nonprofit. So I'm reading about what does a nonprofit need? What's this going to take? And so the first bylaws, so I'm a member of the, as I'm doing this, my little town that I grew up in Pomeroy had the most, everybody in the VFW in Pomeroy was a life member. And the post paid for you to do that, and you had to pay it back. But
Okay.
they would not let you be a member for a year if you're going to join this post. And when they recruited you, they're like, "You're okay. You have the criteria to be a VFW. You're in, and we're paying for it. You don't have a choice." I got these World War II veterans and Korean veterans and Vietnam veterans that are demanding that I do this, that I've been around them all my life, and I don't feel anywhere near they're unworthy.
Sure.
I've got these guys that I've read about and are heroes of mine growing up. Some of them that I didn't have any idea were even veterans. And it's just hard men that I respected.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'm in. I'm dragging my feet a little bit. I just didn't feel worthy of it.
Sure.
But so I'm a member of the VFW, and starting this thing up, I got a couple guys on board, mostly from my platoon. They didn't have a choice. I'm like, okay, you guys are part of this thing I'm doing. Okay, whatever, man. I have no idea. They're the first members of this little club, and whatever. And I wrote the bylaws and plagiarized the hell out of the VFW bylaws because, well, it's a successful organization. Why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? So that's our first bylaws came from that. And then bridging the gap to the Vietnam era guys. Had a lot of mistrust with us younger guys, come to find out. So went out and found a guy, Tom Farron, ended up being the first president. And when I started that, my main mission was just see so many people wanting everything to be about them. And then all those veterans that I talked about, they were all humble dudes. And if I wanted to emulate anything, I wanted to emulate them. That before the quiet professional thing became something, the SF kind of started that and whatnot. But that was ingrained into me as a kid. You don't need to beat your chest. Go let your actions speak louder than your words and all these kind of things. So started the association. I took member number 5, and I wanted to leave those smaller numbers for like Ma Winnie and guys like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, and Ma Winnie never was. And Chuck and I were real good friends, and he never wanted to be part of the association. He had this thing going on with 5th Marines, and they had their own little clubs, for lack of a better term. So he never joined the association, but we put Hathcock in there and just different guys that were supposed to have had better reputation than me, one of them being Lacus. But then he couldn't be a full member, so there was a lot of turmoil with that, and as you know, some of that history. But he, so get off that subject for a minute. But so just moving it forward, finally get Farron involved, become the first president. I'm an officer in the association, mainly so I can keep this thing on track and keep the boat floating because I'm the foundation of it at this point. It starts doing its own thing, start getting a look. And that was the whole thing. We wanted to have something where we could all get back together, have reunions, support dudes that needed support. This is before the GWAT, of course. And have, brotherhood and fellowship, if nothing else, even though not on a religious sense, but our kind of fellowship, if you will, in platoons, get together and talk about and give lies about how wonderful we once all were, those kind of things, like we do around campfires and stuff. So it took off. took off. It started doing its own thing. I stepped away. It had its own legs now. It had its own life and its own entity. I just didn't feel like I needed to be important. I've got over the years, and you know some of the turmoil things that went on, I would get sucked back in by younger members and ask me to come as if I could do something. Yeah, I started it, but I'm not part of the governing body. I don't have a say. I can say what intent was, and that came up one time in Quantico, as a matter of fact. Some Vietnam guys called me back in, a bunch of turmoil going on, and I find myself out in Quantico, and one of the officers, I'd leave the names out, but one of the officers at the time saying, if the founders of the association, this and that, and I think this is what they meant, and he gets done with his speech, and I said, look, this is not like the Constitution. We don't have to think what the founders thought. I'll tell you right now, I wrote these damn bylaws. We started this thing to do this. If you want to know what my intent was, I'm in the room. So let's quit with the bullshit and get this thing back on track. And some of you guys are doing things to make yourself more important in professional life, and that's not what this is supposed to be about. Mm-hmm. And I kept that quiet for a long time. I think I told you, and there's a few other people that knew, but I didn't want to advertise. Until recently, I went out to, and Parkhurst really got the association back on track. He did know there's a lot of hard feelings with people still, but he did a lot of work, got it back on track where I think it was supposed to be and where it's gone. And he got us grounded at the museum for our monument for all of our fallen from World War I, where we're finding that is our beginning. Mm-hmm. And the Canadians have a lot of influence with that, we're finding out. And it's just really cool history. We'll have to do a whole nother thing on that.
Let's do another one, man.
So Tim's done all this incredible work, and when he took charge and took over, I would call him from time to time and say, look, I know you're getting a lot of noise on the outside of the association and this and that, and you're trying your best. What I see and you're doing, you're on the right path. Keep going. And then we wouldn't talk for a long time again. And I just kept encouraging him because I thought he was on the right path. And things are going good now. So like a proud father, but I'm still in the background. I don't want people to know. And my wife is, as we go out to the 25th reunion of the Scout Sniper Association, I go out there for that, and a couple other guys, and meet some guys I don't know, and then doing what it's supposed to do. And my wife says, look, you need to let this out. I'm like, I don't care. And she said, but your grandkids are gonna. Mm-hmm. So that hits me hard. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I'll let it out. And I did at the reunion. And then Parkhurst was actually a little skeptical, I think. And then through the research and stuff, he goes, okay, I get it. And so now it's out. But I still, it's not about me. It's never been about me. And the only reason I did it is with Holly's encouragement for the grandkids down the road.
Yeah. Well, it's part of your history, Carl.
Sure.
Yeah. It's part of your history, man. It's part of your story. It's part of your commitment to the people that have gone before you.
Sure.
And that's a tradition that will continue to churn, and that's part of why we're doing this, because you're continuing and perpetuating that mindset. You're perpetuating that brotherhood, and you took it upon yourself to take the initiative to do that and to formulate that organization. And yeah, it has gone through. It's gone through some stuff.
Oh boy,
it has gone through some stuff, and I don't think there's any 501c3s out there that haven't.
I don't either. The hardest thing for me, and I said this in the little speech I did at the reunion, was impromptu. I didn't tell anybody what I was going to do, and I said, hey, Tim, let me come up for a minute. And I told him I was proud of them all. And the hardest thing, being the founder of it, you become a proud parent. Mm-hmm. It's through the good times and the bad. Mm-hmm. You're responsible for this thing, like it or not. So you got to kind of stick with it. You can show your discontent with what's going on when it needs to be shown and that kind of thing, but also give him praise. And so when it comes fruition and he put all that stuff together out there in Quantico and DC, and the stuff he put together, only thing was missing was cattle cars. The Marine Corps provided nice buses to move us around, and we had the wives and stuff, and the idea was to give them an experience. And Tony's like, we want you to experience what it's like to be a little bit of a Marine Corps life. So with tight time schedules and this, and we're like, wait a minute, where are the cattle cars? Let's get this. Let's get this right.
Did we hang out on the grinder for a few hours?
No, we didn't do that.
we didn't do that.
We weren't doing 17 click land navs and all that stuff. But it was a wonderful experience. Holly and I had a great time. Everybody was a little bit miffed about the tight schedule, but when it was all over, said and done, everybody's like, that was the greatest experience.
Cool, yeah.
And again, so he knocked it out of the park, but just that, being the proud parent, you watch your child go through all these growing pains, and it's no different than my own kids.
Sure.
Watching that whole thing grow to what it is today.
I can see that, man. Man, that's cool. That's a lot of history, and I bet you it is kind of hard to relinquish. You got to let it go a little bit, and just like you said, you got to let it do its thing, because it is an animal of its own.
Yeah.
But there's always that hook in there, because it's like there's some amount of pride in that, because
it is. And to put a movie clip into it, The Last Godfather, and Pacino's saying, I'm trying to get out, and they pull me back in. And there were several times, I wouldn't have many thoughts about the association. I'd get a call or be at SHOT Show, and these young snipers would find out somehow that I started it, and they're like, you need to come fix this. I don't know what you think I can do.
If it was only so easy.
Yeah. I'd been away from it from a long time when the real problems started. And we won't need to get into all that.
So I'm on the SHOT Show floor and cruising around, contracting heavy. So SHOT Show for
contracting at the time was kind of where everybody went if you were in the States, to run into other contractors, find out what's going on, what other work's out there, and see the new kit like everybody's really there for. Mm-hmm. But then we would kind of get together and these kind of things, see old buddies, and that kind of stuff. And I ran into you a few times at SHOT. Mm-hmm. And I'm cruising around, and the Strider knife booth is up, I think right next to U.S. Optics. And Sean Hughes is in there. And I don't know from Adams, but he's putting a Scout Sniper Association thing. I'm like, oh, wow. Man, this is awesome. And I actually think I was at SHOT Show on a break from Iraq at the time, that you would have been deployed in Fallujah and Ramadi, I think 04, 05 time
That's right,
period.
yep.
Yeah. Because I was up in those areas on contracts at that time. But I was on a break at SHOT Show, or maybe it was just prior to me going. Anyway, it's in that time frame. And there's Sean, staff sergeant or a young gunny at the time.
He had to have been a senior sergeant, or he was probably a staff sergeant. He was
running the schoolhouse. Yeah, he was running the schoolhouse. So talking to him, he doesn't know me from Adam, and I'm not saying anything. And I'm like, so tell me about what you got going on here, because I'm trying to get a feel for I don't need to whatever.
Right.
And he's giving me what the Sniper Association's doing and this and that, and he's the vice president, and I'm like, that's wonderful. I'm just trying to get a feel, because I'm not going to go to the meeting. I got other things lined up. And I notice on the Strider knives, they've got the SSA this or that, and really neat knives and stuff. I'm like, wow, what are all these? And he says that all these knives are for the current and past officers of the association. I'm like, awesome. So we talked some more, and I'm looking at the knives, and I'm like, these are really nice knives, man. And we're going to present these tonight at the meeting. I'm like, no kidding. Which one's mine? And it floors him. He's like, well, what do you mean? I was like,
I could probably see the look on Sean's
face.
But
Yes. And I would love, him and I have not talked about this, and we're good friends now. I need to get his perspective on that conversation someday. We're just like, what was he? I can only imagine, because I know what I would have been thinking. Some old dude with a beard. At the time, I was 265. I had a 34-inch waist. I was all yoked up doing the contractor thing, you know, and I'm just wondering what and as I'm looking at him, I'm wondering what he's thinking. You know, what the hell's going on? And so he's starting to quiz me now, man. He's gonna burn down this fraud. Right. So we're talking and going on and talking more and this and that. And he's starting to look at me weird. And I say, look, man, no big deal. I'm responsible for all this. And I want you to go back and look at the history of the association. You're going to find my name. I give him one of my business cards. And here you go, buddy. And I wrote on the back of it, here's my class, because you're going to go back to the God book, 4-88. You're going to find the picture. You're going to find it in the God book. And then give me a call. And months later, or maybe email. Anyway, he's like, dude, why didn't you just come out with that in the first place? You know, so
I got to do the psyops on you for
right, you know. So it was great, man, and been a great experience. And then they come up here when we were doing the TV show. Actually, I had no idea what's coming. Much like you hit me with this, and they presented me with the plaque up there from the association.
Oh, I remember seeing the pictures of that.
Yeah. I was floored.
Yeah.
Speechless. Hit me in the feels.
Yeah.
Just like this did, man. That's what angers me with this stuff so much, is because now I'm showing emotions that I don't want to show. And
you're a human being.
I'm so appreciative.
Yeah. Well, you're a human being. You're allowed to have those feelings.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
So.
That's cool, Carl. So, man, we've been going for a while. And there's so many more things that I want to talk to you about, just because I love the history, and you know, you got a lot of life lessons in the things that you've been through. And so, you know, you've also been through a tremendous amount of adversity in your life, from personal fronts and professional fronts. And you know, I look to you as a mentor, and I had some darkness in my recent times that I needed to call you and get a sanity check on, to make sure that I was, you know, looking at things through the right lens, and not through the murkiness of, you know, that darkness. And so I do look at you as a mentor, and you've definitely helped me out in a lot of ways as I navigate this career and I navigate this industry. And there's a lot of guys out there that want to follow in those footsteps, that want to go do that thing and continue to be. I guess I look at this from a standpoint of, I remember I was talking to you about, telling you about my friend Cody Carroll, right, and his wild career. Cody is a professional soldier, and he will be a professional soldier. That's what he does. That's what we do. I look at that. We are professional soldiers. We've continued to do this job long after our active service has been passed. It's what you do for a living. It's what I do for a living. You've been doing it longer than I have. It's what Frank does for a living. Yeah. There's people that have been able to carve this out, or carve a niche out of this, and remain relevant and stay in that space. From that mentorship perspective, if there was any piece of advice that you could give a young man that's coming out of the military that wants to continue to be a professional soldier and do a job like this, what advice would you give that person, and what's their best course of action?
Boy, that's tough. First, you got to believe in yourself. Then look back to the first thing now that I'm sort of thinking about it a little more. When I started the TV show, and you know, we haven't really touched on it, but I had a huge multi-million-dollar contract, and just the business route I've taken, I've been wildly successful, and I've fallen on my face, and had to reinvent myself. And like you said, the adversity, and tell you got to keep believing in yourselves. And I met some of my old Stapleton guys down at the Pendleton Casino. that we hadn't all been together in a long time. And Larry Lewis, I'm showing him a sizzle reel of the show that hasn't even been out yet. I'm showing it on the little iPad. And he puts it down. He goes, I don't get it, man. And he actually worked for me on that contract and was one of my leads, one of my best leads. And matter of fact, he was also my hatchet man. When I needed to fire somebody, a lead somewhere else, I would send him incognito to be a new guy.
Okay.
And he would assess the situation, and I would give him carte blanche how much trust I had in him. And that's something that, one of the things, you need to have trust in your key people and that mutual respect. One of the things I had with him, though, is we served in that sniper platoon together. Even though him and his partner had me in front of the colonel more times than I care to remember. But they were great in the field. Garrison, not so much. But he said something to me at that point. He says, I don't know how you do this. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you start these businesses, you see them through all this crap, and I have no idea how you do this. I said, yes, you do. You went to the same school I went to. He's like, what do you mean? You went to sniper school. It's how I learned how to do all this. Literally, everything we were taught, reverse planning, being successful, don't quit. Everything we learned in that school is a model for business. Now, that doesn't mean that's the school you got to go to. Any kind of a gateway type school or a gut check, and you don't quit and you make it through and you learn those lessons. Those are the things that made me successful. Plus, I'm just thick-headed, I guess. I have such a fear of letting my family down. And what got me through the hardest points of sniper school, I weighed 160 pounds when I graduated sniper school. Neil Morris thrashed us to starve us to death. I mean, our attrition rate was 70% back then. And a lot of it was bullshit, as you know. Yeah. Weeding guys out that didn't need to be weeded out. And there's many stories about that. Ones that survived it, how we survived. I'm like, how? How did we do it? But not quitting. And, you hear a lot of guys, especially on the soft spectrum, they're like, just don't quit, just don't quit. And it sounds like a cliche. It really does. And I don't know what each person does to not quit, but for me, it was fear of disappointing my family, not quitting. And those thoughts of quitting have hit all of us. Mm-hmm. But the minute they would with me, it wasn't the physical, it wasn't, I don't know, what hits us at different times. This is bullshit. I'm tired of being yelled at. I'm tired of being thrashed, whatever this is. The mental game of it mostly. And when you're like wanting to give up, for me, it was the fear of letting my family down. Before I was married or all that kind of stuff, my mother and father, what would my grandparents think? And then later in life is, what was my wife going to think? What are my kids going to think? Or how are they going to look at me if I quit? What am I teaching them? So to really do that, and then find somebody successful in business. And I had a lot of very wealthy men that if you met them on the street, you would not ever know. Mm-hmm. They were wealthy individuals. And I made it a point to go spend time with them because they've mastered something I have no idea about. And as you got into business, you probably thought, what are all these mysteries that I don't know about business? And as you find out, they're really not mysteries. It's just hard work. Mm-hmm. And a lot of patience and, as we say in our community, embracing the suck. As you're waiting for emails and phone calls that don't come in right off the bat, and you're just perplexed, and why isn't my phone ringing? And you're checking your emails, and I'm sure you did all these things, hoping for those customers to come in and all that. It's just, you just got to keep out there and drive and find out what you need to do on the business side of it. We've got the tools to be successful. We just need to get the advice from the people that have mastered those skill sets, and then take our skill sets and apply them to them, because we've got the skill sets, but we just don't have that map. To get that map and be shown how to navigate it is really, in my opinion, and I don't know, everybody's is a little different, but you've got to have those mentors and get that map and get sanity checks from them from time to time. You know, so we all have our mentors and people we look up to, and I'll throw it back at you. The things you've done and been successful in, I watch you and I learn from you, and I see things that, holy smokes, I can learn from him, and these kind of things. When you're teaching, I shut up, try to listen and see what you're doing. I'm like, okay, this is good. This is the way you're structuring the information and putting it out, and I'm wildly proud of you.
Thanks, man.
So, you know, to see the younger generations come up and have the passion and all this kind of stuff. And so we pass the torch effectively somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. So in that, how we're all connected. And I don't know if I ever told you this before, but when I asked you, I think you told me before, but I asked you if you knew Jared Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember.
Okay. So I asked you that for a reason to reconfirm it the other night. And because I'm getting old and I'm forgetting things. So we are connected and you probably don't even know it. Go back to Larry Lewis. I trained him as a pig, got him ready for school. He went off and did great things. Became a drill instructor, went back to the fleet, worked for Gunny Booker, Sergeant Major Booker, at the schoolhouse. Yeah. And Jared Johnson was his pig. So Jared got trained by Larry, who I trained. Then later on, he trained you, and on and on.
Well, I'll tell you what, he carried the tradition, because I thought about killing Jared in his sleep a few times. I love you to death, Jared, but he trained me hard, and he trained me severely, and he trained me well. Yeah. And so I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jared.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So it just this, you know, and I was doing the math on the sniper community and how small we really are. And at any one time, if you average it out, there's less than 1,000 of us, and even less as we go on now, alive. Mm-hmm. So at our event out here today, got me and Ken, Bill Lundquist, yourself, and then some other hogs were supposed to come for whatever reason, didn't.
O'Connor,
yeah, O'Connor. Having that many hogs in one area, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. There's a couple of Vietnam hogs that live right here in Colville.
There's several more that live in Tri-Cities that I need to really put a foot in their ass to get them out to do things like this.
Yeah.
And there are more in this region.
Yeah.
There are more in this region. There's a lot actually in this region.
Yeah, there's several down in Spokane.
Vincent Peak, I know you know Vincent.
Yes.
Another incredibly awesome human being.
Oh yeah.
Super great dude. And it's a community that's thick, you know, and the power of that community is immense, and it's small, and it's one of those things where, you know, it's you got to look out for one another.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and back to the association, I stepped away. Really didn't want anything to do with it. Parkhurst started the Marine Corps Scout Sniper Heritage Foundation to fund the monument, and he asked me to be a board member. And
he asked me to do the same thing,
and I didn't know if I wanted to do it. And then he called me again, or I called him. I don't remember how it went down. And he asked me again, and I said, you know what? I'll do it for you. Where I think, from my perspective, what you've done for the association and brought it from the abyss to where we're at now, I'm on board. I'll do whatever I can to help you. So I'm back in the fold.
Oh, it comes full circle now.
It comes full circle now,
okay.
Right? And so I'm trying to help bring that history forth. And my wife wasn't real excited at first.
It's just
oh God, another project.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you know, I'm passionate about our history. And with the way the Marine Corps repeats history and getting rid of us, hopefully to bring us back again, I think we need to bring that history back strong so our forebears will not have to go and find it for themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I mean, Carl, there's so many other topics that we could get into. I don't even know how long we've been going on.
Sure.
And this is something that I want to continue to do with you.
Okay.
Because there's so many different things that we could chat about, from history to mentorship, leadership, business, all of those things.
On the business end, did I give you the answer you're looking for?
Yeah,
I don't know if that was vague or.
Vagueness can be good sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Vagueness can be good sometimes because you do have to, it's an adventure, it's a journey.
Sure.
Right? We did something for our monthly subscription service. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yes, I lurk and I watch you from the fray.
So you have the hero's journey, right? And it's not like the hero in terms of like, the egotistical aspect of the hero, because we all hate that word.
Yeah.
But if you look at all of the mythological tales, all of mythology, all stories, it all revolves around the hero and that hero's journey through this cycle of events.
Sure.
And we all go through it, right?
Sure.
This guy by the name of Joseph Campbell really broke it down, and he looked at it from that mythological standpoint, and he noticed all of these patterns. All of these stories have the same sequence of events, right? And there's 12 distinct sequence of events in this whole thing. And you go out of this, it's like the OODA loop, right? You go into the loop, you come out of the loop, and then you go into the loop again.
Okay.
And then again, and then again. And there's some allure in the adventure of not knowing, right? Of saying, like you said, hey, I have to have trust and faith in myself to know that this is the path that I want to take. It's going to be scary. I'm going to make choices that are going to be terrifying. But like you said, don't quit. Say yes to everything, right? Within reason, of course, right? You got to have some intelligence there, but yeah, I mean, that did answer the question. And so that's pretty much what I did. I just said yes.
Sure.
I said, I'm going to go do this. And I might fall on my face a few times, and that's okay. You gotta pick yourself up by your bootstraps, put the ruck back on, and step off with a full 30. It's just the way it's got to be, right? No matter what.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was an awesome time, man. Thank you for inviting me into your home.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed doing it.
How long have we been talking about doing this? For a long time.
Yeah. Well, when the time is right, it'll happen.
I wanted to do it right? I didn't want to do this over a phone call. I wanted, because you're so close, and
sure.
You are so close, but yet so far.
I get it.
As we're adults now, right?
My son lives a half a mile down the road, and I don't see him for weeks.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that bizarre? I mean. Yeah, so I wanted to do this and pay that homage and respect to you by doing this the right way.
Well, the homage, I just enjoy other hogs. I enjoy everybody's company, but in particular my other hogs.
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds pious or up to or whatever, but we have that common ground. It's a brotherhood. My wife understands it. Telling somebody today, my wife is the den mother for all wayward hogs. As it shows, with DeWarty moved up here, Borges has moved up here now. They all worked for me at the platoon. They worked for me with that big contract. We all contracted overseas together, all these things. And then sometimes I think they've actually moved here to punish me. But it's great having them here. I can't tell you what a godsend it is.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's just, and having you guys. And I always tell you guys, when you're in the area, let me know if you need to spend the night. Mm-hmm. The house is open, and Holly gets it. And like you stayed here before. And go down. We expect to come out and find you in the refrigerator.
Right.
Make yourself at home here. And Holly literally does get mad if somebody doesn't feel like they're at home and feel like they can get into anything and that kind of stuff. So,
well, I can tell you that I do feel that. I do feel that when I'm here.
That's great.
Yeah,
good.
For sure. Well, Carl, this is a ton of fun, man. Thank you for your time.
And thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Yes, brother. Good job.
Right on. What's up, guys? I wanted to take a couple minutes of your time to talk to you about the Modern Day Rifleman Network. And if you've been listening to us on the Modern Day Sniper podcast for a while, you probably have heard us talk about the Modern Day Rifleman Network. And if you don't, you've been living under a rock. So let me take a couple of minutes and tell you all about the network and what we have inside here. So first off, why did we start the Modern Day Rifleman Network, and what is it? Well, we started it because we're an education company. We want to teach people the art and science of long-range precision shooting. There is a ton of places all over the internet that you can get information on this. YouTube, forums, Facebook groups, you name it, right? It's all over the place. The problem is that all of those places are mired with people that are passive-aggressive, that are snarky, and general just jerks all over the internet. We don't want that. We want people to be able to come to a place where they can ask questions as simple as beginners and could be, and still be able to get good information from people that are truly willing to help and spread the news and spread the knowledge within the sport. So, no ads, all grassroots. We're over 8,000 members inside the network, and all of these people are discerning shooters looking to better themselves and better their skills with a precision rifle. So we come at this with a holistic approach from both a technical proficiency side as well as a headspace proficiency side, because that's a huge key component. So inside the Modern Day Rifleman Network, it's essentially like a Facebook feed, if you will, but not Facebook. You don't have all the jerk-offs running around on Facebook in here. So we have a main feed, and over here we also have events. So this is where we list all of our events, all of our in-person classes, all of our online events, and you can see everything that's going on right in here with the event tab. So another thing that's really cool is you have a chat feature. And inside the chat feature, we have just now thousands and thousands and thousands of searchable chat features. So the search engine inside Modern Day Rifleman is really, really robust. And it is one of those things where you can just search a keyword and boom, everything pops up within that keyword, and you can search for the topic that you're looking for. Now, if we go over here on the left-hand side, another part of the Modern Day Rifleman Network is where we host all of our digital masterclasses. And our digital masterclasses are going to be found over here in the Schoolhouse Advantage. We have new shooter essentials, circle of components, fundamentals, intro to long-range shooting, positional shooting, tripod, wilderness land nav, scope carbine essentials, all of this stuff, mindfulness and mobility techniques, and this is just going to continue to get built out. So that's inside or behind a paywall. And inside the Modern Day Rifleman Advantage is our subscription service. We also host that here. Inside the subscription service, you're going to get 4 hours of content a month. Let me jump over here and talk to you guys about that. In the MDR Advantage program, you are going to get 4 hours of content a month, plus access to literally a mountain of content that we've done in years past. So you're going to have access to well over 150 hours of videos, high quality content, talking about the stuff that you want to know when it comes to precision rifle. So inside that Advantage program, you're going to get that 4 hours of content a month. 1 hour is going to be some sort of technical or headspace topic discussion. You're going to have a monthly shooting drill, a guided practice session, and then a live question and answer session at the end of every month where you get to ask whatever question it is that you want. So also inside here, back over on the free side, we have the Hornady Ballistics Hub, and this is just an example. So if we go into here to the Hornady Ballistics Hub, what we've done is we have cherry-picked all of Hornady's ballistic-specific podcast episodes and put them into our network, so that way you guys can go direct and you don't have to sift through their feed on YouTube. You can watch it right here on the network. Hornady is doing it right. They are bringing everything that they know about ballistics to you, and they're doing it for free. All of these classes in here are pretty much collegiate level classes on external ballistics. Jaden Quinlan teaches them along with a bunch of people from their engineering staff and their design staff, and it is nothing short of amazing at the content that they're putting out for you guys. So, and we're constantly adding to this, right? So there's tons of information in here. So that's it. That's a little introduction to what we got going on in the Modern Day Rifleman Network. I hope you guys come over and check it out. You will not be disappointed at all. And we're super stoked to have you guys. Looking forward to seeing you in there. Go to moderndayrifleman.com, get yourself a free profile, poke around, see what you think, introduce yourself, and you're going to be surprised that the people inside that network are truly dedicated to being assistants in your growth and development with regard to shooting a long-range precision rifle and how to kind of tap into the lessons that shooting the rifle teach you about you as a human being and yourself. So thanks, guys. Back to the show.